Hi, in today's video I'd like to talk about the most common form of recurrent miscarriage once again, which is the immunological miscarriage. We've repeatedly talked about the anti-embryonic antibodies, and today I'd like to dive deep on what exactly happens at the microscopic level. So here you can see this purple drawing here. This is the anti-embryonic antibodies. This is an acquired condition. So previously you might have miscarried or you have a history of multiple induced abortions. Then you will develop this anti-embryonic antibodies. Now, how does it affect your embryo or fetal's early development? Is that let's look at the diagram here. So the zygote is implanted into the endometrium, but the endometrium has two layers. And then these blue drawings here are actually like very similar to roots. We call them tropoplastic cells. They are like plants, how they grow deeper into the ground to get the optimal nutrients and blood flow and oxygen. It's very similar to how an embryo develops in the early stages. Now, each of these embryonic cells carry 23 pairs of chromosomes. Now, these anti-embryonic antibodies actually target chromosome number 2 inside the embryonic cells. Now, why is chromosome number 2 so important? It's because chromosome number 2 is responsible for the manufacturing or secretion, production of a very important protein known as fibronectin. Now, fibronectin is very important because it has a function of being an immunological barrier. The immunological barrier can be very similar to a glove when we submerge our hands in water. So although the hand is completely submerged, the hand is still not wet. So the immunological barrier, which is the fibronectin, carries the same function. It protects the embryonic cells and separates it from the mother's cells. So there's no direct exposure or contact between the maternal cells and the embryonic cells. And this is how the embryo protects itself from the mother's immune cells. And how anti-embryonic antibodies disrupts this balance is by it destroys the chromosome number 2, binding it, inactivating it. So when it's inactivated, there is no fibronectin that is being produced. So you can assume that this pregnancy is being developed with no barrier. There is no protection layer. And when there is no protection layer, there is direct exposure to the maternal cells. And because it's carrying paternal genes, which is considered an antigen from the perspective of the mother's immune system, then this pregnancy will be rejected by the mother's immune cells, natural killer cells, rejecting it, causing an early miscarriage. Now, depending on how high your levels of these antibodies, this might lead to a poor development or a fetal demise during the 3rd or 4th week. And if it happens repeatedly, this happens more than once. The miscarriage happens on the 3rd week, 2nd week, and it can very quickly develop into a chemical pregnancy, which is why this condition must be taken seriously. If you have a history of 1 or 2 miscarriages, stop getting pregnant, get diagnosed first, and then treatment before you try for your next pregnancy, because you risk your next pregnancy being another miscarriage, and then you also risk it being more than once each time the miscarriage happens. Now, Antai Hospital offers a patented immunotherapy that has a success rate of up to 95%. Now, we neutralize these anti-embryonic antibodies with our immunotherapy so that it doesn't destroy the fibronectin. So your pregnancy is allowed to develop properly, the immunobarrier is allowed to form completely, and then your pregnancy can stabilize into the 2nd trimester, 3rd trimester, and then a full-term pregnancy can be a reality. Get in touch with us today and also leave me a comment down below.